What is going on, YouTube? Oh, whoa. I think the thing is going off. The symbol thing, whatever, triggered. Oh, well. But this
carry on, as they say. We carry on.
This is the Silver Screen Savants, episode 16. We are talking about the James Bond classic movie, Goldfinger. And this has an all-star cast, I would say, from a couple of big names, with starring Sean Connery as 007. This would be his third movie in the role. This also has Gert Frobe, who is also in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and amongst other movies. Also, Honor Blackman, big name in Jason and the Argonauts and other timeless roles. Desmond Llewellyn, but he was uncredited in this one. Don't forget
Harold Sakata, Odd Job.
Harold Sakata, yeah. This would set up Sakata's roles in movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he was in a lot compared to the others, but I don't know if you knew this about Cicada used to be a wrestler.
I believe it.
He's got that build type, so that's why I say it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this movie yeah, so I got a lot of facts about this movie that we can talk about because there's a lot behind the scenes, and there's even some stuff about the score behind the scenes. And for anybody that's wondering, Led Zeppelin, 2 band members of Led Zeppelin did the music for this as well. They don't list it and stuff, but it was so Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, they both did music on the Goldfinger soundtrack for this film. Legends. That's the word I use to describe Led Zeppelin because they're so iconic and famous in that they're about as big as the Beatles.
Yeah. At least for a little while. I think the Beatles were a little bit bigger, but Zeppelin certainly made a name for themselves and had their pretty strong following for many years.
Yeah, and also, funny enough, Q's character. Okay, so Q's character actually has a name in Q. The previous movie from Russia with Love, his name is Major Boothroyd. To my knowledge and stuff, that I'm assuming that's his code name, but then Q is his actual. Q stands for quartermaster. We're introduced in this one to the car.
Aston Martin
DB5. Behind me is also a pic up here of Goldfinger from the movie. This one with Sean Connery in the background. I don't know if you can see that, but
yep.
Next to him's an autograph of actual Sean Connery. That was
Connery.
Diamonds. Hello, Gojira851.
So Goji.
To me, this is how a Bond movie needs to be done with this movie. You got your action, okay? You got the girl, multiple girls. You have your villain. You have gadgets. I mean, this is the first peak, I guess, with the Bond era with gadgets in a sense.
Yeah. And we talked about last time that, it's a lot more fun when Bond has like inventions he can play with and use throughout the movie and throughout the plot of the story. So I miss those days a lot with that. I mean, it wasn't that the Daniel Craig stuff was horrible. It's just that I think a lot of Bond fans were just more happy with the gadgets and stuff like that. It made a lot of fun.
It made sense. It made logic. It made the fan base happy. I've seen.
Yeah, it's all about spies. So I mean,
before we want to go into do we want to go into the segue now with the spies with the news about the director who's directing before we go into the movie, or do we want to save that for?
Yeah, go ahead. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
Any kind of trivia or
I
whatever.
agree, Gojira. Bond needed to have fun. That's exactly the right point. Bond needed to have fun. It needs to be fun. I 1,000% agree. But I think last week or the week before that, news came out that Denis Villeneuve, the director of the Dune movies and one of the Blade Runner movies, and I don't know what else. I've never seen any of his work, but I've heard the name. But he is the director for the next upcoming James Bond movie. We don't have a name. We don't have cast, anything like that. We just have a director, and it's being done by Amazon. So
I did think it was funny because I never knew what Goldfinger's real name was of the character of the actor. So it's Gert Frobe. And if you've ever seen Joe Dirt, there's a moment at the end of that when Christopher Walken's character has a new alias and he's called Gert B. Frobe. So I just picked up on that. I was like, that's pretty fucking funny, actually.
Uh-huh.
And I have to say, man, like Shirley Eaton as Jill Masterson was gorgeous in this, and it's too bad she dies early in the film because I was so bummed.
Uh-huh.
I actually like her a little more than Pussy Galore.
Yeah. Yeah, she's just one of those fan favorite characters, Pussy Galore, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Probably that'd be interesting to see our rankings, like the Bond girls,
That'd actually be a lot of fun. I would do a show.
The Bond girls, even the gadgets would be cool. Henchmen, villains.
I bet Goji would like to be on that Bond girl one.
If you're available.
Well, we don't even have a date, but I think you'd be interested.
Or a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my, he just said.
Oh my.
But so I read a little bit about Denis Villeneuve when the news came out about him from the Hollywood Reporter. I had read that he was a fan of Bond. He's been a fan of Bond his whole career, basically. I mean, I think he said his favorite movie was Casino Royale, so that kind of made a little bit of goosebumps for me. When I see that, because I'm like, please do not be going like an origin story again, because it's like you got that in Casino Royale. You kind of got it in Dr. No in a sense also. Do we really have to do a third origin story for the movie or the character?
No. But now that you have a new Bond, like that's the only problem is when you've done Bond films as long as they have, like the newer generation just has really not all of them have a clue who, and obviously some know who Daniel Craig is, but some don't even go back that far to see like the earlier days, like with Connery or more. They don't know much about it, so like you almost have to reset it again and just say, this is what happened, this is why he does what he does. But this also changes the dynamic because the modern age of how they've tried to strip away the womanizing type aspect from Bond and just go with more just serious tones. That's what Craig's era was all about, was shedding that skin about the womanizing and just becoming more lovey-dovey again. Go ahead.
When you say the series, first go, just comment.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was going to say is they went serious in License to Kill. So you can do that kind of seriousness, like that edge style that Bond is known for when you need it dark. I would say even The Living Daylights was kind of dark for the time with that Bond style.
It is. That one's a little more playful, but yeah, I mean,
you get
Dalton
playful
did
and
really
dark
good.
with it.
Yeah. Well, for considering that Dalton did 2 movies, like they're kind of contrast. So he is very versatile as an actor. So like I like that they were able to do that for him. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Brosnan had a lot of serious films, but he tried his comedic moments weren't as, they don't stick to you much like Roger Moore or Connery or even Dalton. Like they just never really stuck it the same way. Even I would say even Craig was a little bit better with his comedic moments, even they were subtle. but he was a lot better at landing them than Brosnan was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, I'm looking. I've seen some people say there's certain people like there's Tom Holland and all these other names are being thrown out there for Bond, and I'm like, why would you go with Tom Holland? Okay, first he's in the Uncharted franchise. That's Indiana Jones style movie, in that. Then he's Spider-Man. So you're gonna take this kid actor and put him into. It's like, come on, you need. Oh my god, I like your opinion though about that License to Kill. I do.
Yeah, Dalton was way underrated as a Bond. Like,
I would like that.
I would have liked
Bond now.
I would have liked to like a decade of Timothy Dalton would have been fun. It's just too bad that no one really accepted him when it happened.
And they say his source material for his Bond is the closest to the books. I don't know if you knew that, but that's
to me that doesn't really matter too much because like I enjoyed a lot of the Bond films prior to that, so it wasn't like I was really disappointed. But you know, the hoopla was always about Brosnan and like how he was supposed to be the guy, and he couldn't get out of Remington Steele at the time, so it's like he had to just, you know, deny going to be Bond. But then when he came Bond, like, you know, GoldenEye was good, obviously, but a lot of the other films he was in just never really lived up to the expectations until Daniel Craig came along. So, and even then, Daniel Craig era was like half and half. Some were good, some were not.
Yeah, hit or miss. Hit or miss. That's exactly how. Okay.
But you were saying about Holland, like he's really way too young unless they're going to do like some very.
No, you're fine, Goji, about what you said. Sorry. What he said.
Oh, no. Dude, you're right. Like, dude, I wonder also in some of the other films that didn't do as well because I'm assuming also directors approach their Bonds differently. So for the ones that didn't really hit with Brosnan, if you've got Dalton, they might have approached his character different with some of those films, and it might have improved the films. Well, I know it would have improved it because he's a better Bond, but script-wise, they might have done a lot more with it because some of it was just really god-awful bad. And sometimes I wonder if Brosnan's heart was really in it at all. Like, you know, maybe for that first film or two, but I think after a while he just kind of checked out, in my opinion.
Well, what were you going to say about Holland? Sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh, no, it's just, you know, he's really too young unless they're planning to do some very early stage Bond. But I think that might be a mistake because it'd be like trying to watch Spy Kids. You know, it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have like Tom Holland with baby face in there. No offense, I like him as an actor, but he's better as Spider-Man, not James Bond. I'm still going to stick with Idris Elba is like one of my favorite picks. But you and I were talking about it a week or two ago about how Rick Myers had said that if Amazon was smart, they would just go and say, hey, we're just going to do standalone Bond films. Just choose whatever story you want. And we'll just get whatever director and whatever Bond that director wants to do those stories. So hypothetically, if Christopher Nolan wants to do a Bond film, which I would love, if he chose Idris to be his Bond, great. And then you just go on to the next guy. Let's say, fuck it, Edgar Wright, who's not normally to do stuff like that, but he has a good eye for cinematography, says, I want to do a very blackish noir James Bond film. And, you know, he might choose whoever he wants to star in that film, maybe Tom Hardy or somebody, right? So that's kind of the way that the more that Rick talked about, the more I kind of agree that might be the way to go because so many people, nowadays, like I remember even with Daniel Craig, people were like, I don't know if I can envision Daniel as Bond. And even though he did okay, there's always this hang up with the fans. Like we're always like, I don't know if I want this guy. So imagine Tom Holland getting the gig with a 5-film deal, and then people are already checked out. They're like, I don't want to watch this guy. You know, and then your films bomb because nobody's interested in him as Bond. So I
Uh-huh.
think Amazon's smart if they just go with, one director, one Bond that they want, and then that will solve that problem. People either love it or hate it. Quentin Tarantino gets his shot. His Bond can be whatever it is. It can be whatever type of Bond film he wants to make, and so on. So that's probably the best way for Amazon to approach it. They probably won't do it that way, but I don't know.
See, I wonder if Amazon will go how they've done Bond before, keep the tradition alive, let's say like Connery, when he was doing it, he was on for like a 5-year whatever deal or whatever. They kept, they used that character, the actor, and I could see them doing a handoff to the next Bond actor, like in the but that's just me. I'll just but let's start this plot with Goldfinger, because this is an interesting plot, I would say, from the beginning. Where so funny enough, this suit that were introduced to with Bond in the diner jacket, that is from the From Russia with Love video game. And let me get some pics for this. Wow. Yeah. So, okay. Bond destroys a drug laboratory, electrocutes an antagonist in a bath in Latin America. The scene with Miami Beach, that is actual Disney property now, where it was filmed back in the day. But now it's Disney property. I would have never guessed that, but I saw something about that the other day on YouTube. I saw, I'm at this so-and-so scene from so-and-so movie. And I saw that, and I'm like, what? That's cool. Yeah. I do like that kill with the antagonist where he electrocutes him in the bath in Latin America.
Yeah, I forget his punchline. He had a punchline for it, but I can't remember what he said.
Positively
shocking.
Shocking. That's it.
Positively shocking.
Speaking of Connery for a second, Cary Grant was the original actor that was supposed to play Bond before Connery. I looked that up and I'm like, what? I've never heard of. I don't know if you have heard of the actor Cary Grant.
Oh yeah, very well known.
He was the original. Yeah, so this Bond film is also the first Bond film where Connery wore a toupee.
Really? I didn't know that.
His hair was thinning. Yeah.
I do like how at the beginning when they finally get to the hotel, Goldfinger's like in a I think he's playing chess. Or maybe it's cards. Yeah. And so Jill is up at the on her balcony in her hotel room, and she's using binoculars to see what the cards have of Goldfinger's opponents. So she's feeding him through an earpiece, like, okay, he's got this, this, and this. And then, of course, Connery or Bond goes up there and he's sneaking into the room and he sees her. They surprise her, and then he makes, he goes and says, Goldfinger, and he says, you should bet like 10K here. And he starts fucking with him. Because the one thing that Goldfinger hates is losing fucking money. He does not like losing at all. So Bond manages to fuck him over with that. Does the Bond thing, gets with the girl anyway.
Yeah, so they're basically at Miami Beach. His through Felix Leiter, CIA agent Felix Leiter, keep an eye Bond's mission: keep an eye on bullion dealer Auric Goldfinger. When the base, Bond discovers him cheating. He's got his employee, Jill Masterson. I think that's the actress you were talking about. Jill. Yep. Or was that the other? Yeah. No. She's the one that's living. Okay. Okay. So I was getting the actresses confused for a second because one is and she's still living, Shirley Eaton, but the other one, the sister, is the one that's not. They can get confusing, the actresses, sometimes in these movies. Bond interrupts Jill Masterson and blackmails Goldfinger into losing. After an evening with Jill, Bond is knocked out by Goldfinger's Korean manservant, Oddjob. And I like this. Bond awakens to find Jill covered in gold paint, dead from skin suffocation. I like this line that says, "Hello, Felix. Hello. Yeah. I'll meet you at breakfast." And then it's something to do with Felix, get up here. The girl's dead. He says, "Dink? No. Jill Masterson, and she's covered in paint, gold paint."
Yeah.
I like that line. At London, Bond is tasked with determining how Goldfinger smuggles gold internationally. Q supplies Bond with a modified Aston Martin DB5 and 2 tracking devices. Bond plays around with golf with Goldfinger in his country club in Kent. They use a bar of recovered Nazi gold supplied to him by the Bank of England. Goldfinger attempts to cheat, but Bond tricks him into losing the match. Goldfinger warns Bond against interfering in his affairs, and Oddjob demonstrates his formidable strength along with a steel-brimmed hat. I think Oddjob is one of the coolest henchmen. The fact that you can use a hat and you throw it like a frisbee, and it's got steel inside of it or something to cut.
Well, it's got like a steel rim,
mm-hmm.
And really, it's kind of like almost a precursor to Kung Lao from Mortal Kombat, because he has a similar thing that he does with his hat. So it's kind of interesting that they would kind of use that same type of weapon with the hat and how it could cut off heads and split through things. But yeah, certainly the beginning, like, obviously Auric Goldfinger is a pretty shady guy, but he's got his hefty with him. And the cool thing about a lot of Bond films is that even when, like, they could have killed Bond right then and there early on, but they kind of just left him and, took care of the girl because traitor or whatever. But usually it's like whenever Bond crosses paths with him again, it's like there's just like cordial civil banter that goes on between villain and hero. And, it's like, even though, like, there's a great point where Bond's being like the lasers between his legs. And he's like, "If you think this is getting me to talk," and then he's like, no, I expect you to die, Mr. Bond. So it's always just but it's all kind of done in like a cheeky, fun way.
Yeah. Yeah. I do like the introduction of the Aston Martin with Q. You can tell
he's like, "Don't push the red one."
Yeah. You get that Bond early playish kind of style.
Mm-hmm.
Where Bond is like, and you see that in the Moore stuff as well with Q, the interaction still. I've always seen this with Q as he's like a fodder-ish kind of figure to Bond in a sense. Also, I don't know if you've ever caught that, but I've noticed that over the years with the Bond movies. It's kind of like, because that's just me, but I noticed that kind of style with Q.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like Q's always annoyed with Bond
Uh-huh.
because he expects Bond to kind of like take it more seriously than he does. But yeah, it is kind of like a Q's like, come on, Bond, you're my son. You need to treat this a little more seriously than this. And he takes his inventions very seriously. That's why when we talked about with Four Guys Only, when Bond, even though it's not his fault, the Lotus blows up, and
Mm-hmm.
then but Q's like, and then Bond's like, well, you got me another Lotus, and then the Q's like, yeah, try not to blow this one up. It's
Mm-hmm.
always like I'm making these inventions. You're not supposed to like get them blown up or destroyed in the process.
Bond follows Goldfinger to Switzerland. He meets Jill's sister Tilly, who tries to assassinate Goldfinger but is stopped by Bond. She has a terrible aim.
Yeah, she does.
Bond sneaks into Goldfinger's refinery in Switzerland and overhears him telling Chinese nuclear physicist Ling that he incorporates gold into the bodywork of his Rolls-Royce Phantom 3 to smuggle out of England. Bond also overhears Goldfinger mention Operation Grand Slam. He encounters Tilly, who again tries to kill Goldfinger. An alarm is tripped, and Oddjobs kills Tilly with his hat while Bond is captured, strapped to a table and menaced with an overhead industrial laser, like you said. Bond lies to Goldfinger that MI6 knows about Operation Grand Slam, and Goldfinger spares his life. Pussy Galore, a pilot, flies the captive Bond to Goldfinger's stud farm in Lexington, Kentucky, in a private jet. Let's go into. So there are key differences between the book version of Goldfinger and the movie. Don't know if you knew that.
Nope.
It says, as with many of the Bond films, the plot of Goldfinger in the movie differs in certain key ways from Goldfinger. The novel, particularly in terms of the ambitions of its villain, in both versions, Auric Goldfinger wants to control the world's supply of gold, but in Fleming's original novel, he is much more of a hoarder than he is a shrewd dealer. Both versions required a Fort Knox heist, but the novel suggested that Goldfinger would actually steal all the gold from the United States repository, which presented a logistical challenge for screenwriters Richard Maybaum and Paul Den. Fleming never bothered his head about how long it would take to transport the gold from Fort Knox or how many men and vehicles it would require, Maybaum recalled. To get around this while still keeping the Fort Knox set piece, the screenwriters devised a scheme in which Goldfinger would set off a dirty bomb at Fort Knox, irradiating gold and making it useless, therefore making his personal stockpile much more valuable. Also, Goldfinger was the first James Bond film to switch directors. Terrence Young, who did the previous two before this, he was replaced by Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun, and Diamonds Are Forever, and Goldfinger's director, Guy Hamilton. Goldfinger also established many firsts for the Bond franchise. Goldfinger is the first Bond film to have a full-on cold open in which the character goes on an unrelated mission to set the tone. The first Bond film to have an opening theme performed by an iconic vocalist. And the first Bond film to play up the relationship between 007 and his put-upon gadget Master Q. Now, I was going to say, I am a big fan of the production designer, Ken Adam, that did a lot of these Bond films. He did, if you watch the DVD extras and stuff, he'll talk about them. And it's really interesting what he'll say about them. There's a lot of interesting stuff he talks about. Like, I remember watching the one for The Spy Who Loved Me, and he talks about how they did the Leparis and stuff, and it's really cool how they how he did a lot of these scenes and stuff with these movies. He did a really good job with this one. I don't know if you watched any.
Interesting about, like, I remember when the Aston Martin was showcased in the film, and it got nicknamed the most famous car in the world, which is pretty interesting. And like sales for that car went up like 50% just from the movie. And even when the Lotus was out there, that went up a bunch too. So like Bond was kind of like, and I remember that about Brosnan too with Goldeneye. I think it was the BMW two-door little sported car that came out that year, and so they were really advertising the shit out of that too. So it's pretty interesting how James Bond, whenever they have films, they've always got some sort of car that they're going to showcase that's going to be the state of the art, car that's going to be going on sale, or people are going to buy the fuck out of it. And it's pretty interesting how that works. People are like, yeah, I want that Bond car.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing it doesn't have all the gadgets, but.
Funny enough, Dr. No was Q's first appearance, but he's just called Major Boothroyd in it. But it's a different actor than Llewellyn. He's the one that gives Bond the gun when he walks in. Funny enough, you wouldn't know that he's not credited as Q, but there's a YouTube channel. Everything James Bond is the name of it, and it lists him on there. And I'm just typing that in to make sure that's right. It's every James Bond. That's the name of it. And it lists like all kinds of stuff from the franchise, like every Bond actor's age in the movies. Like, for example, Connery in You Only Live Twice was 37 years old. And also they've got like, it's a whole thing, but every Q, even the first Q interaction is listed on there. Like, yeah. So I guess in a sense that that would be kind of true. Desmond Llewellyn's character being in Dr. No first, in a sense. But I don't know. Bond escapes the cell, witnesses Goldfinger meeting with the American Mafia, who have supplied materials needed for Operation Grand Slam.
Grand Slam.
Goldfinger reveals the plans to break into the U.S. bullion depository at Fort Knox by releasing Delta-9 nerve gas into the atmosphere, which causes unconsciousness for 24 hours. Goldfinger promises to multiply the payoff if the scheme succeeds. They ridicule his plan, particularly Mr. Solo, who demands to be paid immediately and leaves before the others are fatally gassed. Bond is captured by Pussy Galore, but attempts to alert the CIA by planting his homing device in Solo's pocket as he leaves. Solo is killed by Oddjob, and his body is crushed in a car crusher along with the homing device. I like how Oddjob's such a mute character, and I like how that character spun off into different franchises, like the Austin Powers one.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of it. I've seen one of them, maybe two.
Yeah, he threw his shoe.
What?
And Austin Powers, the guy that's supposed to be Oddjob, throws his shoe instead of a hat.
Yeah, it's just funny.
But yeah, like again, that's the other cool thing about Bond is the villains are cool, but then it's like their sidekicks, like their henchmen. And so, like, you know, for like Austin Powers, it was like Fat Bastard and all that. But for these, you had Odd Job, you had, I forget the name of Tattoo's character, and Man with the Golden Gun. But
wait, what? Tattoo's character?
Yeah. Goji said, "Who throws a shoe?" Yeah. Yeah.
So you said that Tattoo. Are you talking about the little short one?
Yeah.
Knick Knack.
Yeah, Knick Knack.
Uh-huh.
And that's the thing. Like I like those. Those are almost like as fun as the car gadgets. Like you have these fun sidekick henchmen that are always like the main. You know, they're with the main baddies, and they're a lot of fun because they do all these crazy things like throwing hats and, you know, just surviving for just long enough in the movie to annoy James Bond.
You know, I want to see now, since you mentioned the gadgets. I would like to see if whenever the next Bond cast in the movie trailer comes out and stuff, I would like to see them have a smartwatch as a gadget. They have never done a smartwatch. They've done watches multiple times. I think it would be cool to have different different stuff you could do with the smartwatch for Bond.
Well, I think because it's a modern age now with technology. Technology is going to be a big part of it. You're going to see Bond doing smartwatches or some other gadget that they've got coming out, probably because, again, it's almost like they promote things. So could be a new phone, could be something else in a car. Oh, yeah, the glasses. Another good thing. You know, kind of like what we see in Mission Impossible when they're doing that shit, you know.
Yeah.
I wanna hump a lot. Yeah, it's so funny Goji brings that up because obviously in this movie, when Pussy Galore tells Bond who she is, he's like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
And then of course they do that in the first Austin Powers film where she's like, what was it? A vagina, a lot of vagina. So she's like, a lot of vagina. Austin's like, what? So it's almost a copycat of what exactly happens in this film. That's what makes these films fun, because they're paying tribute to these and all the funny moments that would normally, like, you couldn't do that now because too many people are just get offended by this shit.
I like what Goji said about the laser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one of the things I liked about Roger Moore's Bond was his, like in Live and Let Die, he's got the watch that has like a little, the top part of it turns into like a
buzzsaw.
Yeah, so it cuts the rope that he can get out of it. So those are always cool, man. Like, or they're magnetized or something, which is always helpful.
Yeah. Bond confronts Goldfinger over the implausibility of moving the gold, and Goldfinger agrees. Bond deduces from Ling's presence that the Chinese government provided a dirty bomb to irradiate the gold, making it worthless. Goldfinger's gold will increase in value, and the Chinese will gain power from the resulting economic meltdown. Operation Grand Slam begins with Pussy Galore's flying circus spraying gas over Fort Knox, seemingly knocking out the military guards. At first, I'm thinking it's nerve gas, but I think it's sleeping. You know, she changed them.
Well, yeah, because one thing that Bond does is she's doing it for money. She doesn't really care about the plot or what Goldfinger really his like objective. She just wants to get paid. And so she's like a mercenary, but she does have a conscience. So when Bond's like starts telling her, like, do you even know who you're working for, what he's all about? She's like, I don't care initially. She still says, I just want to get paid. But when they fight in the barn and he gets the best of her, and then they go into Bond makes love mode, he convinces her that, they have it swapped out so that, like, at least as they go to try to catch Goldfinger, like, they're not killing people along the way, because it's supposed to, like, kill them or hurt them long term initially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing too. And I know Goji would know this. The girls in the planes also sort of represent your fembots. These are what would become the fembots, basically. So that was a lot of fun to pick up on that too. It's been so long since I've seen this, but I love those correlations between the movies and franchises.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what makes Bond, that interesting, the correlations and stuff. Another fact, Honor Blackman and Harold Sakata were the first choices for the roles in Goldfinger.
Yeah, they said that they wanted Honor Blackman because at least she knew judo. So they wanted the character of Pussy to have, skills fighting, and she does. So that was a good pick.
Okay, so this is interesting. It talks about how they kind of got the roles. For the role of Pussy Galore, Goldfinger's sexy and high-flying partner in crime, Hamilton looked no further than Honor Blackman, who was then ready to leave her starring role in the hit TV spy series, the British TV show The Avengers, and already had a built-in knowledge of judo, which Pussy schools Bond in at one point from her time on the show. And then it says, for Odd Job, Goldfinger's mute, brutally strong, hat-throwing enforcer. It turned out all Hamilton had to do was turn on his television where he saw a former Olympic weightlifter working as a heel on a pro wrestling show. Harold Sakata came on and everybody booed, and there was Odd Job, Hamilton said. A lot of the locales in the movie were faked. So Switzerland, the scene where he's driving through the Swiss Alps.
Yeah.
That was actually shot there in Switzerland.
Well, they said that Connery didn't go to the U.S. at all. Even though there were scenes shot in the U.S., Connery didn't actually go there. So
yeah,
whatever scenes that they were doing, like at Fort Knox, I guess were done as like a setup, a studio setup, in Britain.
Uh-huh. Oh. Stand-ins. Stand-ins were used for the hotel sets were shot at England's Pinewood Studios. Swiss Force, Goldfinger's various layers, and Archy sets. What was true for those as well. That wasn't the real Fort Knox and Goldfinger either.
Mm-hmm.
It was, Pinewood Studio, black backlot.
Now, I uploaded a picture of the Jaguar that was supposed to be the actual car that they used in this film, but they went with the Aston Martin instead. I actually like the Aston Martin way better.
That's cool. Is that Jaguar you said?
Mm-hmm. Jaguar.
Goldfinger's private army breaks into Fort Knox and accesses the vault. As Goldfinger arrives in a helicopter with the bomb. In the vault, Goldfinger's henchman, Kish, handcuffs Bond to the bomb. Unknown to Goldfinger, Bond convinced Pussy to alert the authorities and replace the gas with a harmless substance. Goldfinger locks the vault with Bond, Oddjob, and Kish inside. When the U.S. Army attacks, Goldfinger kills Ling and escapes. Oddjob throws Kish off a gangway after he tries to escape the vault. Bond frees himself with Kish's key, but Oddjob batters him. Bond electrocutes Oddjob and forces the lock off the bomb, but is unsure how to disarm it. It's like Bond would know how to disarm them. I've seen movies where he's had bombs, and he's disarmed them.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he's was untrained in the bomb stuff in this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Then again, they may have rethought Bond at this point because you're a spy, and we've seen in other Bond films that like when we watched the beginning of For Your Eyes Only, you know, Bond is in the helicopter, which is being autopiloted,
Oh,
basically by Dr.
yeah.
Evil. And then he gets in there and he starts flying it. So, I guess I figured Bond needs to be able to do scenarios. This is almost like Mission Impossible. He's got to be able to do Ethan Hunt stuff and just adapt to his surroundings to survive.
Mm-hmm. It says, after killing Goldfinger's men, U.S. troops open the vault, and a specialist turns off the device with 007 seconds remaining. Bond boards a jet to have lunch with the president at the White House. Goldfinger hijacks the plane, tying up the crew in the hangar and putting Pussy in the cockpit. Bond and Goldfinger fight for Goldfinger's gun, which fires, shattering a window and creating an explosive decompression. Goldfinger is blown out the window. Pussy and Bond depart parachute from the crashing plane. Lighter search helicopter passes over the unseen pair. Pussy tries to alert them, but Bond playfully declares, "This is no time to be rescued," and draws a parachute over them.
Goldfinger.
I like the theme song. That is one cool. I think Bassie did some good music with the Bond movies.
Oh, yeah.
So she's done, to my knowledge, I think 3 did Moonraker. I don't know. That movie to me is forgettable at times.
Oh, yeah.
Hit or miss. So she did Moonraker, Diamonds, Goldfinger. I'm thinking there might be another one somewhere buried in. Can you tell though that Goldfinger was rushed?
No, not really. Not for me.
The reason I say that is Goldfinger had to be rushed through post-production. That's a fact about the movie. Saltzman and Broccoli had locked in Goldfinger for a September 1964 release date even before production commenced, and the producers weren't keen on shifting their schedule. That meant Hamilton and the entire production team had to work fast to finish the film on time. Editor Peter Hunt later recalled conducting his own second unit shooting in order to make the film's final cut work to his satisfaction. And composer John Barry, who did wonders with the Bond franchise with music, was scoring scenes straight out of the cutting room to get the music done on time. Barry was working so fast that he warned Hamilton he might have to perform the entire score live with an orchestra at the film's premiere because they wouldn't have time to record it for the film. Hamilton later recalled he and Hunt bursting into tears at a screening for Saltzman and Broccoli, who proclaimed the film done even as the director and the editor were spotting new things they wanted to cut.
Well, if it was, it didn't make a difference because they spent $3 million to make it, but made over $125 million. I mean, that was a huge return on a film like that. So whatever they did, they were able to get it done right.
To my knowledge, this is not high on IMDb.
It's high enough for me. Like I said, I already got my top 25 list, so I know exactly where it falls for me.
It says it's a 7.7 out of 10.
I mean, well, if you're rating it compared to other Bond films, I can kind of see the logic there. I mean, I'd be a little higher than that, but I can see it.
Who was it? I think we had Anthony Bullock was in this movie. In fact, Jeremy Bullock. That's who I was from Star Wars. Jeremy funny enough, I didn't mention this on the For Your Eyes Only, but he was Smithers in he was in that one scene where Bond goes to Q with the gadgets. That was him in the where he got tested with one of them.
Yeah.
That was him. Funny enough. Yeah. I'm trying to make sure I say this right. Okay. So he is in Spy Who Loved Me also, and in For Your Eyes Only, and Octopussy. I thought he was in this one. There's so many characters that look alike.
Yeah, true.
Is this something you would recommend for somebody? Is this an entry point you would recommend for somebody that wants to get into the Bond franchise?
Definitely. Yep. Definitely a top 10 Bond film.
I wonder if we should go into a little bit more facts about this movie. Or Goldfinger created Bond Mania. Both Dr. No and Dr. No from Russia with Love were successful films. Saltzman and Broccoli had been dissatisfied with the international response to Bond at that point, particularly in America. With Goldfinger, they were determined to break through across the pond, and they got their wish. After racking up box office returns so fast that it set a Guinness World Record for fastest earning film in the UK, Goldfinger stormed into American cinemas. In New York, some theaters played the film constantly for 24 hours. It eventually earned $50 million in North America alone. The response was more than tickets purchased. In the UK, thousands of people tried to pack into the film's London premiere to the point that the crowds pushed through plate glass. In Paris, Connery was surprised by a female fan leaping into the Aston Martin he was driving as part of the opening of the French premiere. James Bond was officially a pop culture force, and there was no going back. So I would say this is a film that put Bond on the map.
More than likely. I mean, they probably had a following, before that, but this one was like definitely one of the fastest ones to make that kind of money. Like it really went sky high. But part of that too is because the single itself for Goldfinger did very well as well. So the song plays a huge part in that as well.
Ian, the author of the James Bond novels, passed away shortly before the film's release. Another fact, this movie was initially banned in Israel. It was banned in Israel because Frobe's past membership in the Nazi Party was later lifted. Fine, yeah. Goldfinger in its first 2 weeks grossed over 120 million worldwide. This was the first James Bond film to win an Oscar for Best Sound Editing. The film featured locations in the UK, Switzerland, and the United States. The iconic Aston Martin DB5 was heavily featured, and its gadgets played a significant role in the film. Orson Welles, the producers originally wanted for Goldfinger, but his salary demands were too high. They cast Gert Frobe, who famously couldn't speak English. Michael Collins dubbed Goldfinger, as Frobe had to phonetically mouth his lines. Yeah. Goldfinger is the only film where Bond orders a martini shaken, not stirred.
Yeah, apparently they talked about Pussy Galore's character as being a lesbian in the book, and in the movie, like that's why she's so like standoffish to Bond. But then Blackman noted before her death that, is she still alive? I don't know if Honor Blackman's still alive or
No,
not, but
no, she's
but
passed.
she stated that she felt that like that was sort of like abuse or mental abuse by Goldfinger to make her believe that she was that way. And of course, Bond broke that spell like a real Snow White prince or Sleeping Beauty, excuse me.
Uh-huh. Um, do we want to go into the review scores?
Sure. Yeah.
I'll let you start.
Yeah. So certainly great film. One of the better Connery Bond films that are out there. Obviously, one of the more notable Bond girls, Pussy Galore, is like one of the more famous names. That's where all the puns come from, all the parodies and stuff like Austin Powers. That's how they play on all those nicknames that they have for that with the Bond girls. So uh, it's a good plot. It's a little dated, but it's still, like I said, a top 10 Bond film compared to some of the other stuff that's out there. So for me, I'm going to give it an 8.5.
All about
Odd
everything.
job.
When we do our, are we gonna put the henchmen on a list for our? I mean, if we do the rankings, are we gonna do that with the movies?
Well, the rankings, as we speak, are like 25 movies, so that might take a little while. So we might have to do like Henchmen and Bond Girls separately.
Okay, with Goji.
Yeah, or with anybody who wants to join. Like once we figure it out when we're going to do them,
I like.
those could be done kind of earlier because we're not done through. I want to get through most of the Bond films before we do the rankings. Yep, yeah, Aston Martin. I think Roger Moore actually drove that in Cannonball Run. I think he was actually kind of doing a parody of himself in that film. So I think he was driving that car in that film.
And then we have this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that would be all for that movie. Picks and stuff. For me, I would say you said yours is an 8.5. I would say mine's a 9.
Mm-hmm.
I love the score for Goldfinger is really well done, like you said. I like how the Bond. This is one thing I noticed that the Bond theme, like how, whenever Bond has one of those good moments where the music plays, like it's kind of like his, like Indy, for an example, when they have the score for Indy when something wonderfully done happens for him.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that was not in this movie, and I mean, I noticed it in other movies. Like I noticed it really well in You Only Live Twice, and movies like that are really well done as well.
Yep.
That's one thing I would like back in Bond as well, the new stuff. If they're gonna, because it's what made Bond. You knew something fresh, unique, cool was coming when that happened. So, but I mean, it's a 9 for me.
It's a good score.
As for where I would put this on my ranking, though, I myself haven't ranked them yet. Put my list. I'm gonna eventually do that. But I would say right now it's probably in a number 3 spot.
Okay. It's good grade.
Majesty's is probably up there as my.
Oh yeah. Well, you said that was like your favorite, right?
Mm-hmm. I would say I mean, it varies though. Time to time, it changes. With people.
Yeah.
Do you want to start upcoming content?
Yeah. So really, right now, I haven't really planned out my week too much yet. But tomorrow, I'm gonna be sitting down with a good friend of mine that I've known a long time, Jason Steffen, who is a musician, and he has a one man project, but he just put out a record called Electric Elephant Graveyard. So I'm gonna interview him, catch up with him. I haven't talked to him in like 4 or so years. But we're gonna listen to a couple of his tracks from his brand new record, which will be a lot of fun, and just sit down and kind of go over his career as a musician, and of course, as now he's a father and a military guy. So be interesting to chat with him a little bit, and then of course. Midweek, I do have my Ghouls of Midnight pick, which is Eating Miss Campbell, starring Lindsay Crane, who I just interviewed last Wednesday. After her latest film, How to Kill Monsters, that we reviewed. So more Lindsay Crane stuff coming away, which I was really, really happy with Eating Miss Campbell. So that's gonna a lot of fun to talk about that. And as I showed you, probably got like a little picture there of my next pick on Silver Screen Savant. Yeah. He's going to be Desperado, Antonio Banderas, and
do you have a link for that?
I'll have it up in my Plex for you. So
I'll have to watch it off Archive or something, probably, because I couldn't get the Plex thing figured out, so that's why.
Okay, but it shouldn't be too hard to find. It might even be on Tubi or something too. It's old enough now. It's from '95. So
is that the first one in the franchise?
Well, it's sort of like a reboot, soft reboot to El Mariachi from Rodriguez, and then they did do like a sequel with Johnny Depp a few years later, which the name escapes me at the moment, but certainly fun movies for sure. Desperado was amazing, a lot of great cast in it, and a load of fun. So you'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah, it sounds interesting, and I'll probably enjoy it. Desperado, I've never heard of it, so I've kind of slightly heard of the trilogy that you were talking about, though. And is that all you have upcoming? Do you have
so far? Yeah, I haven't really planned too much else right now, but I'll let people know as the week goes on when I start filling in the gaps.
Another What If coming or anything like that?
I don't have it scheduled, but I do plan on doing it. Initially, I had planned to do Predators, but I think I might move it to something else in the meantime, because I'm kind of Predator out right now. So I might switch to one of my other topics in the What If universe, but I'll let everybody know when I'm ready to do that.
I know I have a bunch of stuff to go through. I got to make intros for some of this stuff. I'm setting a goal. I've already set the goal. I want to have new intros out by September. So let's go through my stuff because I've got a good amount. This will be the first episode on our show where we talk comics, me and Goji. This will be covering this character, the Max. You guys have told me about him. I mean, I can say that much. Eventually, down the road, we'll be. This is a new show on the channel. I don't know. We don't have a date or anything. I still have to put the intro together. I've got ideas where to go. I found a really cool song that goes really. That's a rockin' song. Goji says on Messenger, rockin' about it. So that's fun. And I think I've already got my second episode figured out. And I don't know if I want to announce that or if I want to announce it on the show. But I'm thinking of leaning towards going to Clayface for episode 2. A character... a character I don't know. I've only seen in the animated stuff. So I know Goji's a big Batman. He knows his Batman also. So that would be something fun because
okay, so for Desperado, Goji's going to join us for that, so that'll be fun.
But that would be an interesting character to talk about because, in fact, if anybody does not know, Clayface is coming out into the DC universe, into the Batman, into the movies of DC as a movie next year. And it's rated R. So I think that would be an interesting character. I'm sure Goji knows about a good amount about him because he's like me. I like comics as well. I can't see him on camera, but way off in the distance on the bookshelf, they've got like older collections.
The only thing I know about Clayface is from the Harley Quinn cartoon series with Poison Ivy on Max. Like, that's the only version of Clayface I've seen where he's kind of goofy and aloof.
So I've only read the about Carlo, like from. Let me see if I can't get it. I only know about Clayface from this. Let me make myself full screen. But I only know about Clayface from this. So that's what I know. I don't know origins, characters, all that stuff, but yeah, what he said. But we'll be covering that for possibly episode 2. And we can go into the Bat family, all those characters with each episode, because the Batman family is filled with lore. Now, I did this over the other day. This is our new podcast show. All the Tokusatsu stuff is going to be on this channel now. So we're covering a show. Did you see Goji's comment to you?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
But this is our Tokusatsu, our new Tokusatsu.
And Goji does a great Bane impersonation, by the way.
We'll have to have him do it for the show when we do Bane for sure. I would like to know what to read for Bane, because that's one character I'd like to read about, because Bane is really cool.
Well, it's so funny because the one they did in the 90s with Batman and Robin was not that great. He was kind of more just a mindless machine, but then Hardy does his version, which is way better and a lot more intimidating in the Dark Knight Rises. So I'm trying to remember if I even remember him from any kind of cartoons or anything. I don't think so. I mean, Goji would know a lot more on that than I would,
but this character that's on these pictures, his name is K. He's a robot. He's a detective. He solves crimes. He fights monsters. It has a one well-known Japanese actor, and he is the brother of Sonny Chiba. Is in this show. Either it's a brother, it's some relation to Sonny Chiba, and huh? What did you say? You start. Oh, okay. But we're gonna divide this with this. I don't have a thumbnail yet made for the other show on the Tokusatsu stuff, but I'll try and get one this week done. But this is K. This is like his robot fighting form, right? I don't know. I wish you could show it on my mouse, but it's the bottom left picture with the K on it. That's his K is his name. He's a robot fighting form. Then I get to talk about now my new show announced. This is Olvin's Den. I came up with this idea, and I'm going to talk about, for the first episode, one of my favorite game franchises of all time, the Prince of Persia trilogy. I will be diving into these games on stream. These are currently on sale on Steam, so I'm thinking of picking them up. A huge fan of this franchise. I want to go into the review this stuff as like series, and then eventually also other movies and stuff that like that's not covered on Savants, like cartoons and stuff. I'm gonna be doing some stuff like that. Like one that I plan to do. That was my phone. But another one that I want to do is Secret of Nim, a movie I have never seen, but I've heard plenty about. Huh? Think you're muted.
Oh, yeah. Secret of Nim is a great fucking movie. Sorry, the cat was making noise.
Oh, you're fine. But I have to get intro for that. I want to do the gameplay and stuff for these games as well. So I think that would be fun to do as a. So like you have your intro for your channel. Oh, you started me. What are you talking about, Goji? I'm trying to figure out what Goji's talking about. Oh, you started me.
Why do you still have us covered up?
Huh?
Yeah, that's the thing up is blocking us. We're just talking behind a wall.
Oh, sorry. And then also next,
I think it might be just because I mentioned Clayface or Bane, and he knows a lot more about Bane than I do.
Oh, okay. But then also, me and Goji, in fact, will be. Oh, that'll be something I'm really looking forward to talking with you, Goji, on stream. Then talking comics, it's a good thing. I think he's asking you if you want to be on an episode or something like that.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know anything about comics. Like, I know nothing about comics. Neko knows a lot more about comics than I do.
There you go. Neko buys Anubis comics. It happens. It's got to happen now, Neko. I bet she heard me say that.
Hey! Stop! I'm going to put you outside.
Uh-oh. That's not going to be fun.
Yeah, she has never been outside. She's trying to get up in there.
Oh, okay. No, that's what started me. So, and then also the last thing is in August, we will be playing this on stream. Me and Goji both.
Ooh.
This comes out in August, and oh, chat is being weird, he's saying on his thing. Chat is weird. Okay. But me and Goji in August will be playing this. This is the first game in the franchise, remastered, coming out. So you can look forward to that. Let me get the date on that because I don't know if he'll be wanting to do it day one, but I would be. August 26th, that comes out on. So look forward to that. And that's about all the stuff that I've got.
Yep.
And then, like I told you off stream before I started it and stuff, I do plan. I want to do when we do the horror stuff and we get Tony on with us for that stuff. when we get Mr. Tony of the Dead on for that stuff. Also, I want to we'll be covering horror for September and October-ish. I guess we could start in September. Is that roughly when
Doesn't bother me.
is that when you would say?
I mean, it's fine because I know that Kevin and Anthony are going to be doing a lot of horror during October too, so it doesn't matter. Like, that's fine. I'm always down for horror. It doesn't bother me. I live horror films, so.
Yeah, and you'll have to send me that. Oh, I have that one show then about eventually. I have all these. I have some theme songs picked out. I have, I've got some theme songs picked out, and then I got to do the intros, all that stuff. So my goal, and it's a long shot, but I'll get it done for sure, is September have intros and stuff done. There's going to be what I'm saying is, though, there's going to be a horror edition theme, like theme intro, outro for Savants with, I don't know, maybe Jason and a couple clips. I'm trying to think. Michael Myers, maybe. Maybe I can get some of the Wrong Turn off that. That's one of my...
Yeah, you can search like horror clips and they'll bring up all sorts of stuff for you.
Yep, but that's all I've got. And I know next week is Desperado. I think that's all we've got coming. And
yep.
The three guys are on vacation right now also. So you won't be seeing them for, 2 weeks? Is that right?
I don't remember how long they're going to be out there. But like I said, Goji's down for Desperado. So it'll be fun to have him on talking that.
So they come back on the 13th.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be exciting and interesting and cool to see what comes up.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Once
Upon a Time in Mexico, yep. It's actually pretty good too. Not a bad film.
I'm sure eventually it'll be on our list somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have anything picked out for my next pick. So
got 2 weeks.
I'll pick something. I don't know if I'll continue with Bond or if I want to go. I know I want if we do Star Wars, I want to save it for Jedi because Jedi just who knows.
Oh yeah,
I might go in
Star Wars,
Indiana for my next round.
And
I'm not talking like I think you said we shouldn't do Crystal Skull or the other one because.
Well, I mean, it just depends on what your goal is. Like, if you're planning on doing like franchise,
not every franchise,
Yeah, like I think Bond's pretty good for that, just to do that. But
we'll see what other. I mean, it'd be cool to do some others also.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Terminator.
There's so many movies, so little time.
You said it. But anyways, this has been Silver Screen Savants, episode 16. We will see you next Saturday for episode 17, Desperado. Until then, see you all next time.
Later, folks.